Mwasibire muta, mwasibye mutya, amahoro, agandi, byaibo, habari gani, muraho, sangonini, kopango, odeo. For those of you who are wondering what that was, these are some of the various local greetings found in East Africa's diverse languages. Welcome to She Center, the female podcast, where I dive into the issues and experiences that affect women everywhere. I am your host, Resti Kansime, and I am passionate about creating a safe space for women to share their stories and triumphs. I want to thank you for tuning into my podcast, and I would love for you to join our community and stay connected with us beyond this episode. You can find us on Instagram at _She Center _podcast, and follow us on Facebook at the She Center Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and hit that follow and like button on our social media to be part of the conversation. Hey, welcome back to yet another empowering episode of She Center, the female podcast. I am grateful to the She Center family, the loyal listeners who keep providing this safe space to my guests to share their stories, and to the new listeners, especially Pumla's dedicated fans, friends, relatives, everything. Welcome. Karibu. I noticed quite a number of you in the comments on social media expressing your admiration for her and saying that you follow her everywhere she goes. So I'm thrilled to have you join us here. I hope that you stay and become a part of our community after Pumla's last episode, which is this one. I promise you that every story on this podcast is worth your time. Each episode offers inspiration and insight, so take a moment to explore our previous episodes and stay tuned for more amazing stories in the future. All right, let's get to it. In this episode, we continue with part 2 of Pumla Navachua's journey, I would say, as she answers the question, what happened to you? Pumla dives deeper into the journey with IVF, sharing the emotional and physical challenges that she faced. Despite her fear of needles, she persevered, driven by the hope of helping other women become mothers. Pumla opens up about the painful and uncomfortable experiences during this process and how it may have or how it impacted her daily social and academic life. She also reflects on the emotional significance of knowing that these eggs would potentially result in children with her DNA, shares about the letter that she wrote to her potential future children, which was a deeply emotional experience. She also shares insights about her professional life as an economist with the Bank of Uganda, and she discusses the challenges of working in a male-dominated space. She also talks about dealing with imposter syndrome. It's a very amazing discussion, and I love everything that she said about self-worth and confidence and our discussion on these two topics. I believe Pumla's journey highlights the power of resilience and the significance of supporting and empowering women in all aspects of life, as you will find out if you listen until the end. So settle in and get ready to be moved by Pumla's story. Don't forget to share this episode with friends, family, and any other person out there that might benefit from this wisdom. And also, as always, stay connected with us on social media to keep up with the inspiring stories that we bring you. Let's dive in. Talk to you at the end. Bye for now.
Swallow? Is there something I can't take? She says, no, you have to inject yourself twice a day in the morning and at the same time, so you have to set up an assisting. I was like, woman, I have class. I'm a student.
Now I know why people don't donate.
Yeah, I also have a life out of academics.
Yeah.
I like to hang out. I live my life, good time. And there are things I can or cannot do. Like, you have to reduce on the alcohol towards in the cycle. You don't smoke. I think that tip was smoking, but I don't smoke, so that helped. But yeah, drinking, and you have to, because if you're going out and then you've just had the treatment, it might play with the viability of the woman told me things. I said, then she said, but
Wow.
also we can do it for you. We can do. And that spoke to me about the desperation of the situation. That a nurse could come to my home twice every day to inject.
Wow.
If I chose that option, or if it was easier for me, I could go to the facility twice every day to be injected.
Wow.
So I was like, madam, let me first do this and I see. So of course they give you there's a dummy there, they show you what to do. And in my mind, my mind kept going back to those women. Again, I'm not the most sensitive person, I'm not the most empathetic person, but for some reason during that time, my mind kept going back to those women, to that conversation, to the depth, the longing I feel. I feel that longing even now. And yet even at that time, I didn't even understand it as much. Because I was a child, I was young myself. So I just said in my mind, Pumla, this physical pain that you're about to endure for 30 days, a woman has struggled with this problem for 10 years.
Yeah.
Are you going to compare, honestly, to run away from what could be your gift to somebody else for the rest of their lives just because of injections? Like I kept talking to myself and I said, you know what, it's fine. Let me allow and just do this. 30 days passes in no time. It's great. So I started to inject myself every day. And then as you inject yourself, so what the injections are doing they are inducing hormones in your eggs to allow them to reproduce faster and also to be more viable. So in a cycle, maybe if you're supposed to have if you usually shed 12 eggs, you'll find that because of the hormones, now more eggs come through. And I remember when I kept going to have my checks, I became literally an experiment, not an experiment, a monument. What are those things in the museum?
Yeah.
Like an artifact, to be honest.
You are like an extreme case.
I was like an extreme case. The women, the doctors, every time I went, because I used to go, I think, every 4 days just to have my
we
eggs
call
checked,
them celeb
the
in
number.
Uganda. You are celeb in your area.
I became a celeb, but the celeb was because I had the highest number of eggs that they had ever witnessed, ever. Why? Because the people who go, so if you really look at the numbers, the data is very clear that women of African descent have much more eggs than women of Caucasian descent. The data is just there. I had never known about it until then. So I would keep asking these people, what's the average number of eggs? And they say we get about, from Caucasian women, 8 to 12 eggs is what we harvest. They were so mesmerized. And that is when I realized why, and I said this before, why infertility is not regarded as an African problem. Because Africans, generally African women, have a large number of eggs that they're just getting out of their systems. We have much higher fertility rates. So when you have many things working for you, you tend not to look at the minority side, can I say?
Yeah.
For example, if you're in Germany and you have great roads, generally you have great infrastructure. You're not going to speak so much about the places that don't have as working infrastructure. That's just what happens. True. And yet they are there. True. And I'm sure there are people in those places, but nobody really speaks about them because we have bigger problems, We have poverty, we have corruption, we have poor governance, we have, it's like a whole list of things. We have
but
malaria.
This one is the one that works for us, We
have malaria, and then we are looking at fertility. And yet most women are just they sneeze and they're pregnant. So we don't consider it as an African problem, and I think that's where the stigma comes from. That why am I the curse? Why is it me? That's why we get it as a curse. So I remember when I went for the first time, I was able to harvest 24 eggs. I was able to harvest 24 eggs, and this is in a place where they have an average of 8 to 12 eggs. So it was such a big deal. And I'll tell you that process, the injecting process. So I did a mind over matter thing over the injections. So I was really great for the first 2 weeks. Now, after the first 2 weeks, the eggs literally start multiplying. When the eggs start multiplying and getting bigger, they push against your uterus. your stomach. So when you look at a woman who's going through IVF and is injecting themselves, the eggs they start to come out and form. So your stomach becomes like hard. It becomes like you're pregnant. Those were first months of pregnancy, or like you've eaten a lot, like you have a ball in your stomach. So your stomach becomes really round and hard, tough. So now even getting the injections through becomes even more painful. So me, that's where my struggle was. After the first 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, like the last 10 days, can I say, are really painful. They're really hard. And because I was going to school as well, and I was going out, I couldn't go out. I had to stop like my enjoyment life. I had to, even like school, like I used to have tutorials or classes after school. Like so now people had to agree to come to my apartment because I would have to inject myself. I needed to be in a place I was comfortable and things like that. Or I had to literally go running around, moving around with my injections and things like that, depending on how late or how long I was going to be somewhere else. But otherwise, after that was done, like when they called me to the theater, the last 30th day, the doctor was like, yeah, so we can schedule an appointment for tomorrow and have the eggs harvested. I was like, oh, finally. He told me through what was going to happen. They take you out completely. And I was under maybe for about an hour and to have the eggs extracted. And that was the end. And they took them out and I was good to go. I got up, I was a little woozy. I had a friend come and pick me up. Now, you see, I'm sure you're used to these things. If in Uganda, in Africa, when you've been through a procedure, the whole family comes. All your friends come. They really warned me and said, please, don't call people.
Don't bring anyone.
You'll come and you'll rest for maybe about an hour and you'll take yourself home. I was like, what are you talking about?
Oh,
no
porridge, no vianda.
No vianda. No one is packing for me things. I was like, madam, no. That's when I hadn't told anybody. I only told that one guy. And the reason I told him, we had become close, the reason I had told him was, I was like, Bana, if anything happens to me, when I'm
someone needs to know.
Someone needs to explain to my parents what exactly was going on. Why Pumla had put herself in this situation. So I had explained to him everything, and he's the only one I told. So I asked him, Munag, you come, the procedure is ending at this time. Make sure you're in this place by this time. I must find you waiting for me. I was like, oh yeah. And he came, Bambi, took me home. And truth to be told, I felt better. I was okay. I went, now, the next I was like, Fuchs, now let me go back and see if I can have these tubes of mine tied. No sooner was I going to the fertility center than I receive a phone call. Pumla, so let me take you back. After you've given your eggs, you can choose to or not write a letter to your potentially future children.
Yeah.
So as an egg donor, the child carries my DNA.
They're practically yours.
And they are practically yours. So it becomes more of a nature versus nurture issue. So biologically, they are mine. They take from me. Everything I have hereditary. So you're even supposed to declare like things that you have, your genetics, your genes. They take a lot of samples from you just to keep, and they keep them actually so that in case of anything, they can trace certain things
questions
down.
Yeah,
they can ask questions and find out what happened, where did this come from? Because my family has sickle cells. I'm a sickle cell carrier, so I had to declare this as well, and all those things.
Yeah.
So they tell you to write a letter, and so my letter for me was, so they can tell you to tell the child who you are. And they put that letter in your file. So I think this process got personal to me. Before it was more technical, I think it got more personal to me as I wrote the letter. You know, when they tell us about yourself, when you're explaining to a child who you are, when you're explaining to a loved one who you are, it became so personal for me. Yeah. In my mind, I was like, imagine, because I write letters to my son every year. Okay, until he was 12, I stopped. Until he was 12, and and the point of writing those letters was for him to have a snapshot of what
you were going through,
what we were going through at that time, and who we were to each other. So that also my son, when comes on a podcast and Rusty asks him what happened to you, He doesn't even have to jog too much. He knows
that's true.
year by year
That's true.
what happened to him as he grew up, and he can relate who he is now with maybe an experience.
Yeah.
But the second and more important one was that I didn't ever know if I would be alive to explain to my son things, to tell my son stories. When you grow up without your parents, there is a gap that it brings.
Yeah.
There are unanswered questions unanswered questions that nobody has the answers to. Everybody who has the answers to maybe are in the grave or are just not available to you. So I always said that, you know what, and I mean, I'm very structured as a person. So I always said that I could die. There's a possibility of death. And I don't know when I'm going to die, but I could also become incapacitated. I may not be able, I may lose my sense of speech. I may not be able to speak. And then I can't tell my son stories that he should know, that he has every right to know.
Yes.
So when I was writing this letter, I literally felt like I was writing to my child. So there was there's a part of me that now leaned into these people's story. And I was writing and I was really telling them who I am, where we come from, my family. My family is a very close-knit and connected family, about love, and speaking to this child about my values, our systems, and telling them you have a brother somewhere in Africa. Remember, I was in Manchester and I was like, see how interconnected we are. You're going to grow up and you're going to feel
you're
certain
writing
things.
a novel.
And like I was literally, I poured myself into the letter.
It must be an emotional moment.
It was so emotional for me. I put that letter aside. And I closed that file and I was like, oh my God, this is a child. Like, these are potentially children. That I'm looking at them as eggs, but these could be my children.
Out there wondering, why do I act the way the way
why am I?
Why
you
am
may
I
not be able
bold?
to answer. Exactly, and you see like how you ask the question, what happened to you? Is just one part. The who am I? There is a part of you that is just you innately. It's just your DNA. It comes from your mother and your father. And then everything else may be nurture. You may have developed habits along the way because of your environment. But that's just half the story. There's a half of who you are, what you are, what your mechanism
your whole identity is written in.
What are you? Who are you? Where I call myself a Muganda. But this person, I'm a Muganda. This person will never know that they have Chiganda blood in them, So it was just a whole thing of, oh my goodness, these are my children. And somebody else, I'm allowing somebody else the privilege of raising them. So after that, I was like, okay, that's done. End of discussion. I get a call from this guy and she says, Pumla, I know we had agreed to discuss about this whole tube tying thing, but I'm just asking if you could do for us one more fertility round.
Other miracle. I think you are like Banang. You guys.
I was like, guys, you're testing
this
me.
This empathy is too much.
I've given you a finger. You've come for my whole hand. I'm sorry. But you know what? Again, I thought back to those women. And I was like, if I could do this for even more. Remember the eggs are 27, and I think they'll put in you maybe more than you need. And these are eggs that go around to different women. Not just the one, the two, or the three.
Yes.
So I said, you know what? Okay. She asked me, how long are you here for? Now we were deep into summer. I was writing my dissertation. I was like, you know what? I have 2 more months here. But I can use the 1 month to, do the procedure again. So I went through the procedure again. And this time I got 27 eggs. And we went through that. And I was like, oh, great. This is again. And I think what prompted me to do it the second time was the letter I wrote, because I had made it personal. Now my emotional self had really entered and connected and said, can you imagine? I can't even have 10 kids out here in the UK, in Manchester, just walking around. In the
future, there's this movie of this guy who had kids and they all came for him here. They used to sneak around. I don't know what it's called. Imagine I've seen
the advert of it, but I haven't watched it.
I think it's Adam Sandler or something like that.
I've seen a trailer. I think of it, but
now imagine like in the next 20 years, and now you have grandchildren. Like you have a whole nation. From you have a whole nation. And you see, because men can do it easily, because a man can give out his sperm as quickly as anything. For women, it's unheard of to hear
it's not the same. That's why I keep on wondering why.
That's also a very good story for your son.
Yeah.
Because now when he goes out there, he's thinking, man, this could be my sister. This could be my brother.
sister. Yes.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's
like
something
a
I
whole
had to
global
explain to
sisterhood
him.
thing.
That
Yeah,
it's something I had to explain to him, and I told him, you have to know, like, and understand where people came from. And these children, again, so when you do that process, they'll tell you, we'll only show this child this information
If they
if
ask
their
you.
parents allow them,
if
or if their parents even tell them. You know, there's one thing, you can grow up in a home and not know that you're not of that. And you know, Africans, even adopted kids, they don't tell them that they are adopted. So now, what about somebody?
I can see I'm different.
You can see them. I can see, I know. But they are not telling you anything. These kids we get from, your mother died, or my sister died, I took the children. They don't tell you. You
open
were raised,
that can. Yeah.
Those are cans nobody wants to open. So now what about a child of an egg that has been grown inside me?
Unheard
so
of
they
in
tell me
African
the
society.
possibility, African society, you may not get that word out, but like in the event someone does tell the child and the child comes, you can accept on whether that, but we can only allow the child to get that information after the age of 18. So I was like, and they ask you, do you want the child to have access? It's everything is your decision. I was like, I would really want this child to be able to. If there's a child out there and they're told that this is the woman from whom your DNA comes, and they look for me, I left my contacts, I left my everything on how to be reached in the event, because they can look for you also in the event that maybe there's a life-threatening issue, and they find that maybe you can serve as a donor or something like that. So they say that maybe also to test certain things in case of anything. Again, this is if the parents have told the children.
An interest,
yeah. So I was like, and when I think about later, it's only recently that somebody asked me, Pumla, would you like to ever meet your children? It's not something I ever think about, ever. But until that person asked me that question, and I think we were going through a discussion of fertility issues in Uganda, and now that I was older and I was more aware and understanding of the real significance of what I had done and the real issue of infertility and fertility problems in our country, I was like, oh my God, like, wow. So when the person asked me, Pumla, would you want to meet your children? I was like, I pray that one day, because right now, 10 years have passed, 11 years now have passed. So if one day somebody looked for me and picked up a call and said, I went to the fertility center and found out that
you're my mom,
you're my mom, you're the one who gave me an egg, because I'm not their mom. The truth is, I'm not their mom.
Your mom you're biologically just
who raised you. It's just a biological issue of you're from whom I came.
Yes.
It would literally close this circle, because I feel that I did something, and if I could just
a part of you is out there.
Yeah. And you can actually call, you can ask them, you can have them let you know if any fruit has been.
Oh, have you ever asked?
No, I chose not to. It wasn't something I ever thought about, to be honest. I just decided no. I was like, no, that one, I'll only take it if I feel like I'll keep wondering. So there are people, there are 7 children out there. Like, if I knew the exact number, it would become too real to me.
You're right.
Yeah,
you might even start stalking them and be like, okay.
Yeah, I might. I don't know what I can do, you know? You can, and you see, even that stalking problem. I remember I have a cousin who asked me to be a donor to her. This cousin lives abroad as well.
That's very dangerous.
And the doctor said, we don't recommend for you to have somebody so close, because you literally start treating them as your child. We've had
imagine you're there and the person is like, dude, don't do that to my child. Like, I think it would be the hardest thing to
that
even
emotional connection remains, even if it's definitely not as strong as somebody who's given birth to the child, but there's literally an emotional connection that you will have with that person. The same way you may have a connection with your cousin or people who you're just related to. That's why they'll tell you that that's why that incest, like the most powerful raging hormones, a desire, can come between people who share DNA. That people who are sisters and brothers and cousins and things like that, because of the connection, there's a pull that comes towards it. So the doctor advised and said no, so we didn't do it. But it was like, I keep telling my son, I've told him before, so I told him about this whole procedure, and I told him, you know what, you've just got to be careful. You just have to ask the question to these girls
That's
that you've with.
pressure.
Have you ever been to the UK?
It is so serious pressure. Imagine the guy is in Manchester, you know, he has gone for his master's. Now he's like,
I
wait a
cannot
minute.
allow him to
Could
go
it
to
be?
Manchester. No.
Could it be? Could it be? And you're like, wait, they said it was a West African. Now I can't even date a Nigerian. That's pressure, but I love that. Like when you share that story, I remember I watched a doctor in Uganda who was talking about, this is organ donation, but it almost has something similar. Until you have not walked in the mile, but he was talking about how like people always think about organ donation. No, I can't do this. You know, in African society, it's unheard of. But until you're the one on the receiving end, you need, like, I have an auntie who has been needing a kidney for the last, I don't know, 10 years or something like that. And they have tried his siblings, everyone, she can't. And she's like looking everywhere until you've been in those shoes, or you know someone who has been in those shoes. That's when you can say. Now, for instance, like your cousin, like, I have talked to relatives who have told me they are struggling to have kids. And in my head, I'm like, I wish I could offer them this. But then I also have that conversation with my head. I'm like, how would I even be there knowing that my child not only is out there in the world, but is right there with my, like, my sister's kids are practically like my kids. I don't know how I would feel if a person I know was carrying a child that I know biologically I'm their mom. So it makes you to wonder sometimes. Like, I think this is also something that you only have to do if you have the strong will. Because for me personally, I swear I would be on social media trying to look through. But that's amazing, Pumla. That's amazing. I know one day, like in the future, someone, maybe your son or your great-great-grandchildren, they will feel that need. Even if you haven't done it, I'm sure someone will feel that need to find out who these people are and what did they become, like what became of them. I know someone from your lineage would definitely want to do that in the future. And I know it would be, like you said, it will bring the circle around. There will always be, I think, that missing thing in you that says, I really wish I could know what happened with this. Like, how many kids, like you said, how many kids came out of these eggs? Anyway, let me just look around Europe here.
I honestly don't have the desire. I don't think about it until people ask me about it.
If I go to Manchester, I'll just look around and see, is there a Pumla?
I think
in case I see someone, and you guys, your faces are all the same. Like, you guys all look the same.
In the family,
Yes, your family. You guys all look the same. It's always even hard to say this. She looks like the mom or the dad. Like,
we look like
you
each
guys
other.
all look. Yeah, you look like each other. So I'm certain if I met a Pumla somewhere, I would definitely call Brenna and be like, I met your niece. Anyways, thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, so I wanted to ask, because you have a very, your role at your workplace, economist and all those things. This sounds like a male-dominated industry or society. I don't even know what to call it, like, because it seems like something that has a lot of pressure coming from a woman's side. And maybe not on you, since you said, you've been raised by your dad to be a certain way. Could you share a little bit about this? Because I know there's a woman out there who is listening, who maybe also is just getting into that industry, or just getting into, I want to be this, but I need to, how our parents, I don't think in the millennial age parenting, we're doing this to our children. But when we're growing up, there's this thing where some parents would be like, will you manage law? Will you manage this and this and this? So share about first of all, what led into economics, and what is something that you think you can share about your experience in this field? How have you, as a woman, managed to, Okay, now we know. The problem is we know you are Pumla. You're like that. But just make it seem like we don't know that you are, strong-willed, and you're like, forget you told us all that. Speak to us right now and tell us those challenges that you have faced, and how maybe in the shoes of other women that you've seen who have it has not been as easy for them. How have you navigated it, or how would you think they could navigate such male-dominated industries or fields?
For me personally, I always feel that if something is for you, it comes a lot easier. That has always been my perception. I feel like I'm like water. I usually take the path of least resistance. I'm not fighting battles that are not mine to fight just because. And I think for economics, it was mostly interest. I never really liked school. I didn't like school growing up. I just didn't relate to the structure. I'm a rebellious child at home. I just thought that it was just too systematic and structured, and to what end. Schoolwork for me was just boring, the education, until I came across a subject called commerce. So I used to do a lot of my studies well. School was fake and boring, but I wasn't doing badly. You see, it was just boring. It was just fake. Then I came across commerce in my S3 and I just loved commerce. And then I went on to do economics. And I was like, that's all my focus was on. I picked an interest in economics. And I will not lie to you, I've never really gone back to find out why this particular subject spoke to me. But it did. Where no other subjects I was just doing them well. And the ones which I was not doing well, there's a subject I really liked, actually, mathematics. Like, I really, really loved mathematics as well. But I struggled for a large part of my life. I struggled with the concept and foundation of maths until it clicked. When I understood and something, came together. It was a little much later on. But for economics, as soon as I was introduced to the subject of supply and demand and prices and how that just changes everything. And money, how it just makes the world go round. I was just so fascinated by, oh my God, there can't be anything else like this.
Wow.
So I just pursued it, like without thought of anything around me. And I feel like it's because economics is a male-dominated field. They're mostly economists, and economists are the type of people who it's mostly ego-driven. You have to have been published to write papers. So you'll find that if you're not a warrior, women, you'll find that you have to work 2 times harder to be seen, to be heard, to succeed generally. Men have it a lot easier in the field. But again, I think it's just because of I think it's mostly tenacity. It's just, I don't see challenges as most people see them. I view challenges as things that are just helping you to do what you're supposed to do better. Just, like if there's no challenge in front of you, your brain doesn't work. Your brain doesn't think. If you just live life smoothly like this, I'm not one of those things come to you and face them, because I have got problems from my male colleagues. It's not even, I remember even as young as when we'd go for workshops and seminars and trainings and things, the men immediately they come together, they're talking about the Keynesian theory and what your perception is of this theory that works and this law. And for us, they're asking us, oh, that's a really nice skirt you've got on. Oh, where did you get those? Those are really nice shoes. Like, it's like they would immediately box you. And then you'd have to now come out and speak. And then you'd see people looking at you like, hey, this girl, she has some sense. Like, you have to introduce yourself for them to come and speak to you in a different language. Otherwise, it was like, oh, that's
not
really
expected
nice. Where
of
did you
you
get
to
that?
be smart.
By the way, my wife back home is about your size. Can you help me, get some clothes? Yeah, that's how they speak to women.
Wow. Yeah. You're
And
like,
they do it
okay,
subconsciously. Don't think like it's not like they're doing it because they're trying to put you down. They are aware of what they're doing. No. They're just, no. And then the next month, immediately, they're talking about the policy rate and what the Fed Reserve is planning to do and what, like, for them, immediately, it's like they treat you literally different. And then when you start to give answers and speak about, then they look at you. And for me, it's always been an issue of, yes, understand where you are in the game. And instead of being frustrated by where you are, don't take it as an opportunity to step up. The issue with women is it's more women have a problem with the imposter syndrome being that you don't feel like you deserve to be where you are. It's like,
that's true.
Am I really worthy of being here? And I won't lie to you, even I, in my confidence, the times I have questioned. When people pick up the phone and call me, I was called to be a keynote speaker at an African engagement, like a whole Africa. who said my name? Where
Too
did
much
they?
responsibility.
And this person is explaining to me like she's almost begging me and saying, Pumla, we've had you speak on this platform. We've had you speak about this. There's this thing we're trying to push. There's this, and your name came up from 3 different regions.
Yes,
And
yes.
I'm like, what? You mean beyond Uganda, beyond Kampala, beyond Uganda? And this person is not understanding and then asking me to send my bio. And she's looking at my bio and saying, but Pumla, I've had you saying different platforms that you're also this. And I'm like, oh yes, also that one. And also this. Oh yeah, also. Then I say, oh, also add that one. And also this. And by the time we were done, I was reading my biography.
You were like, who is this person?
Who's that?
I
She
know,
looked at me
right?
and I think it was then that I was like, you know what? I speak to women a lot about self-worth and putting their best foot forward.
Yes,
but
yes,
I also
yes.
suffer the same problem. My biggest
Yeah.
challenge
Oh my
also
God.
is not so much the imposter syndrome, but the questioning. Am I deserving?
Worthy.
Am I
Oh
worth
my
it?
God.
Why me?
Wow.
Like, who am I that people will listen to me? What is it that I'm
Yes.
saying that is different from what other people are saying? Who am I to impact? My inbox is full of people asking me questions, asking me for help, for advice, for guidance. And I respond, in the beginning, I used to respond and say, you guys, I'm not a counselor. You don't give advice. But I was like, by the time somebody's asking you,
sees it in you. Yeah, they have seen
there's
it in
something
you.
they have seen in you, possibly that you've not seen in yourself. Like you have the potential,
my
you can
God.
do it, you know.
Yes.
And when I started to think about things like that, it's still a journey. But when I started to think about things in that way, I was like, why is it that we give other people can view us better than we view ourselves? I should be my biggest cheerleader always. And I've spoken
Unfortunately,
about this before, that men, even they exaggerate who they are.
I was just about to ask, I was like, do you think this is a female?
They are.
Okay, let's just paint a picture. If there are so many women who you know who have this bio that you have, would you question it? No. It's mostly probably
Maybe
because,
not.
maybe you'll be like, this is normal. You know, they're calling me, I have this bio.
Maybe, true.
But because in this space, I'm guessing there's a woman I listened to recently. I don't know if you know there's some guy who has a leadership podcast, and he was talking to a woman who just wrote a book called Worthy. She started a makeup company from nothing, and she said she struggled for years to get it to a certain place. And right now, L'Oreal, you know, they put her makeup in this.
I know of her. I know of the lady.
She shared something that was so amazing. She said, like, she has bestseller books. She's running like one of the biggest companies. She has sold it, and she said Oprah called her personally and said, come to my home. And when she was leaving, Oprah gave her her personal number and said, call me in case you need anything. And the woman said it took her 4 years. 4 years. She had, imagine, you have Oprah's number. She said 4 years. This woman shared, she said, I want to read this woman's book. I found out about her, I think 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
She said she had that number for 4 years. Yeah, her book is called Worthy. I also don't remember. She said for 4 years she had this number. And she's thinking in her head, why didn't I call Oprah? There are so many times where she could have opened doors for me. She said, I didn't call her because I didn't think I was worthy of being Oprah's friend.
That's it.
And I'm like, can you imagine just something like that? Like, so when you're sharing this, first of all, I was like, I should ask this question because I want to find out.
Jamie Kern.
Yes.
That lady, Jamie
I'm like,
Kern,
I need to find out. Does Pumla, the person who we see with this confidence, you don't see yourself the way other people are seeing you. And yet this is the energy you're putting out there for us to see, but you don't believe in it.
Yeah, and you see, it's so strange. And I remember when I had just started speaking, and I would see people sharing like the things I would say. I would see them sharing them on social media, sharing them, and I would see forwarded many times. And people would share them even with my parents. And my parents would like come and say, oh, Pumla, wow, this is really something. My parents, I remember I would be called like I would be speaking, and then on TV, like NTV would capture things that I've said.
A moment,
and I would be like, what is it that I have said? And then I used to have a problem when I'd come out and then people would approach me and say, oh, Pumla, what? You're really doing a great job, you're what? And initially I disguised it and said, I'm just not great with people approaching me. But my real problem was that I really didn't think I deserved that praise. I did not at all. Like, I used to say, Pum, what is it that you have? Like, there is nothing special about you. You're just there. a human being, a normal person. You're not the cleverest. You're not the prettiest. You're not the richest. You're just there living your life. Why are people calling you? Why are people calling out? Why do people see you on the street and say, Pumla, can I take a picture with you? Pumla, I have this issue. Would you help me with it? I'm like,
Pumla,
why?
me?
First of all, I may give you katwa. And now, I always defend with that. Like, I would always lead with, I'm not a counselor. I'm not someone who gives advice. I'm not an expert.
You're literally describing a research paper that I read that was counter arguing imposter syndrome. You know, that whole research started a long time ago about how women have imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And this research, I think it was from Harvard or something, one of the universities, it said it's not imposter syndrome. It's because society has made it seem like women cannot do certain things. So you always start with, I am not a doctor, but let me give you my advice. Like, because society has not made you believe that you as a woman, you can have all these hats on your head. You reach a point where you're like, so you just term it imposter syndrome, but no, it's actually, you've been trained to believe you're not, you can never be perfect. But well, as you said, in this research paper, they said men, on the other hand, they even exaggerate. Like, you ask them, what do you do? I am the best salesman times 100 or something like this. But for a woman, you might even be in times 100 and you may not even be able to say it to anyone because you're like,
that's true.
What will they say? Because if I say it, maybe they will think I am smart, I am not good at home. So I have to prove, to prove who I am as a person. Yeah. And I think that gives so many women, like, it releases people from pressure.
Yeah,
when you get to that
must release ourselves. You are what they say you are. If they, and I say that, I think because it's a double-edged sword. There is also a fear. Women like to be liked. Women, it's I don't know if it's a good thing. Me, I see it like as something, as a vulnerability. Women just we like to be liked.
Society has made us like that.
If somebody is praising me, I'm also giving them power to disarm me. Yes, that's why you see that when Clinton goes and says that I did not have sexual relations with this woman, he was once standing at up here because of he was praised. But the same government, the same people he was representing are the ones who had to take him off. So it's like you're giving people power. Like, if you're allowing people to validate you in certain ways, then
they can take it away also.
They can take it away from you in a second. Someone will share your nudes as a powerful woman and everything. Now you're depressed.
Exactly.
Because the people who you were taking power from. So for me, it's just do the inner work and speak to yourself. People can tell you things, but don't question. Like, you can question it and be able to learn the gift. I have a gift, which I feel is a superpower that I need to lend to everybody, of seeing very quickly. I can see noise from constructive feedback. I see noise very, very quickly. I know what if someone is criticizing something, I can see where they're coming from. If they're trying to make me better or maybe trying to help me be a better person, I can see it very clearly. And I can see when somebody's just trying to hold me down and, put me in a place. I haven't experienced many of those, I must say, because I've realized that people will only come for you when they see a vulnerability in you. They look for that vulnerability and they take it. And I feel like I've not given people space to see those cracks.
You're right.
So I think they don't jump onto them very quickly. But I've seen even powerful women, the exact thing you said, that there is self-confidence and there is self-worth. People can see through your lack of self-worth very quickly.
It's very easy.
You just
to see.
don't. It's very easy, and it's easy for it to be seen by both people who are insecure about themselves with low self-esteem and also with them. Now, the ones who have self-worth may think that we are there together, but the ones who actually really have self-worth can see that there's something off about you.
You're doing extra.
Something inauthentic.
Like
it looks inauthentic.
Like yes,
someone can, because for you, someone who has both worth and confidence, there's a way you do things that is really fluid. You don't apply yourself so much. You just speak, you just act, you just do or you don't. And it's there. There's a way people who have a lack of self-worth, they do over and above. They give of themselves so much more than they really should.
You want to prove. It's
like
everywhere
you're
you
always
go. My name is Pumla. Bumplav. I have this.
It's like
I have
you're
masters
always
in this.
trying to prove something. So it's
you're
that
right.
whole
You're
difference
right.
that if you can cultivate, again, I think at the
Yeah.
beginning I said that depending on how you were raised, you'll find that some people already have a solid foundation, but it doesn't mean that you can't cultivate it from anywhere that
Along
you
the
are
way.
at.
Along
You
the
just
way.
have to be aware. The problem with this is that you have to go through that painful process of accepting that this
Yes.
is who I was. This is the home I grew up in. I have low self-esteem. I'm not confident, but I can do the work, because after a certain age, you are the work. So it doesn't matter where you are, when people tell me male-dominated field, it doesn't come to me quickly.
It doesn't click to you.
For me, it doesn't click naturally, because I'm like, so what if I'm with men? As in, what does that mean? The only way I would have a problem is if it was a physical job. But a mental one, of which my faculties are open and match yours equally. No. If I was maybe doing cement, lifting cement, bags of cement, there I would maybe come out and say, this male-dominated field, I have this challenge that biologically I am physically weaker.
Yes.
And even if I bodybuild how much, the man will always have an advantage by factor of his biology. Then maybe we can navigate those challenges together. But mental faculties, emotional, psychological faculties, you can't nimeza me male-dominated. We are the same. I am able to do what a man can do mentally and emotionally and psychologically. I will only fall short, and I will admit to it, I only fall short physically. That's where I fall short. And I always allow men to help me when it comes to physical issues. There I never even pretend and say, I can lift those bags. No. I am able to, but it's an easier job for you. So you do it. Yeah.
So for me, Pumla, thank you so much. We need more. if only like what you're explaining right now, I am hearing you saying, I have been raised to believe nothing is impossible for me. And because of that, you go through life just trying to understand. Like, I recently talked to someone and she was like, for her, she was trying to understand why other people are weak. Like, she always tells me, she's like, why can't this person stand up for themselves? Like, she's like, they irritate me so much. She was like, I feel so agitated to see someone who acts like they're weak, like they're putting us down. Like, we have done so much as women. So for you, I think it's very important, and I'm very glad, because it's easy for you to have this, it's a gift, I would say. It's a gift. It's easy for you to have this gift and not use it to help others. There are so many people who have conquered everything. Like, you can even be the president, but you're just saying, yes, I got here because of hard work. No, you have a gift, and it's because of where you've come from as a person, your background and where you've come from. But using that gift to show other people and empowering other people, like finding someone who is saying, I can't do that job. Why? And psychologically showing them that they are lying to themselves, because, as you've said, there is a difference between someone saying, I am weak. No matter how much I work out, a man is going to, do much more physical things than me. But there's another one of someone saying, I can't do it. And you ask them why, and they only tell you, I just can't. That means you have no reason, and which I have started to question myself of late after reading a certain book, which is called Do the New. Like, I ask myself all the time, like, how can I say I can't do something? Like, what is stopping me? The people who have done it, how were they able to do it? For them, do they come from Mars or whatever? Why? And that fueled me so much, because, as you said yourself, like, I consider myself an outspoken person. And this is probably because I grew up with my mom, who is outspoken. But along the way, I got to some school somewhere in secondary where I went to a school where I went to girls' schools, and then I went to a mixed school, and there my voice went down. I got to a space where I couldn't openly share myself, because, as usual, you're aggressive, you're you need to you need to tone down, and then people telling you want to steal our men because you're this and this and this. So I found myself reducing myself to
were you in
No, I wasn't. If I was, that's why when I meet people from Bud, I know, right? I went to some other school. If I had gone to Bud, I think it would have been worse. But I was in Hillside. But it wasn't even the fact that the boys were dominating, but it's the fact that my same gender, the women, the girls, made me
feel that way. Like you have to be a certain way. But me coming from a single girls school, we were all equal. We didn't have, but this one is a boy, they're this. Like I went to single schools until I was 16 years old. I knew I can do anything because in single schools, there were smart girls. You see examples of that. And then in mixed school, they start telling you, no, it's the boys who always pass highly. It's the boys who are doing this. I'm like, but in my school, so I eventually, that's where my life started going like this. Like my confidence started going down. It took until 2020 for me to sit down and say, Rest, you've always been a confident person. What happened along the way? Why do you question yourself right now? And then I realized it's because I was in a society where people who are used to having boys do everything as like the head now got into my head and told me you shouldn't be outspoken, you shouldn't be like this, sometimes tone down yourself, don't speak too like this. But then now I'm getting my power back and saying, Nedda, no, please let me speak if I must.
You're getting your fight back.
I'm getting my fight back. Pumla, this has been a very, very enriching conversation.
I'm definitely going to borrow that analogy now. Your mind, just what you've said right there has sparked off something in me that I can use to speak to women who have been in single schools, that when we were in single sex schools, we never ever had an imposter syndrome problem.
No,
never.
Not at all. No.
So why is it that when you plug yourself into spaces that have men is when you feel that you may not be deserving or you may not be worthy? Why is it? It means that in a single school where nobody was telling you otherwise, where you were all the same, where in a school like you asked me, like, do you think we'd have that problem if we were more women at a certain level? And I'm sure we wouldn't, because at a time when we were only women in the school, only girls in the school, we didn't have the problem because we were all great and we could aspire to do great things.
Exactly.
But when we put ourselves in a place where there are these people that we feel or been socialized to think that they are more deserving than we are, that they're smarter than we are, then we may allow ourselves to feel small.
We reduce ourselves
to fit in. And that must stop for sure.
Yes.
And let me tell you, the men are not doing anything wrong. They're
just thriving on our insecurities.
They're just being men. And now you're the one.
Act like you know what you're doing and people will believe you.
Just act like you know. So also you, why don't you act like you know what you're doing?
Exactly, yeah. I remember, I think it was Michelle Obama. I watched her becoming video and she was talking to young girls. And these young girls were like, how are you able to do this and this? She said, let me tell you the truth. She has said, don't let anyone lie you. I have been to rooms with all the smartest people in the whole world. And they also don't know what they're doing.
Yes.
She said she gets into rooms where these guys have to decide policies that affect the whole world. And she said she saw that they also didn't know what they were doing. She was like, we can sit here and praise Obama, but even him, there are times when he didn't know what he was doing. But only Michelle, who was in that room, can tell us. But us, when we see her, we're like, wow, you're just one of a kind. No, she's not one of a kind. She's just lucky to have been in a room where she saw other men not able to do something. And I think that's something that exposes you to the power that you have. Seeing a man, like they say, like how you see a man cry and you're like, I can cry as a man? Is this possible? So that means as a woman, if you see another woman thriving, then you... Like, think about it, Pumla. Like you said, you were smart, you didn't like school. How many people in your class used to be like among the best? But some of them you might find are not even doing jobs that they are deserving of, only because as soon as they got into the work environment, they were told, don't apply for that job, it's for men, or your own self, you tell yourself that. But when you leave school, you are the smartest. You even won boys in class. But when it comes to jobs, why are you not applying for those jobs? So it says so much about, like you said, not even imposter syndrome. It is how society, internationally, I believe, society has made us to believe that, Mnange, you don't deserve some things. But guess what? Pumla's mom likes cooking and doing everything, but she has a PhD. So that means you can do it all. You can win here and also win that side. I also have an auntie who is equally, I think you know Estella, the mom. PhD. PhD, educated, but when she's at home, when she was raising us, I grew up at the Stella's home, she was always telling us, you need to do this as a girl, you need to do this as a girl. And you're like, we know when you grow up, you're like, wait a minute, I thought only the educated people are the ones who are supposed to come home and be like, I just came back from work. Let the man also do this. But she also equally did these things. And to me, who didn't grow up with my mom, like my mom was living here, that showed me so much. It made me see, okay, you can also be like up here, but also go home and be a wife if you've chosen to be. So this is very, very relieving. Let us not fight battles, like you said, that we cannot win.
Yeah, I don't have time to fight battles.
Yeah, Pumla, this has been a very, 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 I don't know how to say it. I have to reflect so much on some of the things that you said, and I'm sure most of the listeners are going to do the same. Thank you for sharing this journey with us, and thank you for how you've answered the question, what happened to you? Because I guess if someone just knows of you and has not heard your story, they might be like, education, we like, education does that to children. It's because you educate them, and that might be some reason why some people might not want their children to be educated, because they would talk back to men and be confident. But no, the other thing is, it's not that. It's the fact that you were raised to be both, to be a girl who respects her home and chooses to be submissive or to do whatever it is that she wants to do. I don't even know if that's the word in your vocabulary. Submissive.
It is. People just don't like to use the word, but it's the word.
Yeah. But at the same time, you can also be the person who uses your knowledge, your God-given knowledge, to help this world. And I hope that with whatever it is that you're doing, She Center is definitely a project that the imposter syndrome in me started by saying, Resty, you don't have the experience to start a platform, an online platform, which is going to be the first in Uganda, because who are you? You get, that's why I asked myself, who are you? But then I said, I have this like natural experiences. I have grown up seeing poverty, rich, poor, and everything. Yes. I have grown up in different experiences. So it gives me the experience that I need. And whatever I'm lacking, I just need to reach out to the people who are doing that. And hopefully in the future, when the project has been finalized, I could reach out to you and have you to, give that other half that the rest of us, me and the people who are planning this project, cannot be able to access. So thank you so much, Pumla.
For sure.
It has been a great conversation, and thank you so much for your time. Yes. Do you have any last words for any woman out there who is listening?
Honestly, I've made my mantra that I always speak about is power lies in choices, and you only give away your power. Nobody can take your power away from you without your consent. Yeah. And power is something that is very layered, but it starts with your mind. Yeah. Everything starts with your mind. If you can take control over your mind, and your mind, I mean, take control over your thoughts. This is a very quick tool that it's the easiest tool that I can give women to take control of their thoughts. If you watch your thoughts, things that come in, it's you who decides what enters your mind, what you think about, what makes you anxious, what makes you stressed, what makes you depressed, what makes you unhappy, what makes you sad. If you can control your thoughts, you're able to control your actions. If you're able to control your actions, you're able to control you're able to control your words. Actually, from your thoughts is your words. If you're able to control your words, you can control your actions. If you're able to control your actions, then you can take control of your habits. If you're able to control your habits or manage your habits, you can take control of your personality, of your character. And if you can take control of your character, you can take control of your destiny. And at the end of the day, your destiny is the decisions that you make. So for me, I always tell women that whatever comes through your mind, do the most you can to protect your mind from negative and put more positive. Feed your mind more with positive, with love, with good things, with blessings, with care, with confidence, with esteem, with self-worth, with kindness, with empathy. If you can keep filling your mind positively, your mind gets confused into thinking that it is you who tells your mind what you want it to do. Believe. So if you would feed your mind with negative, your mind will think that that's what you want to keep reaping. If you feed your mind with positivity, your mind
Yeah.
believes that that's what you want to keep reaping, and the universe aligns with all
Yeah,
those thoughts.
with true.
So for me,
Yeah.
whatever you do or you don't do, your mind is the most powerful tool. So feed
Yes.
it and nurture it well.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
for me always my final word when I'm speaking to women.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
hope,
She's Center community, you had it from here. Thank you so much, Pumla. And these words of wisdom. Bananga, you have gray hair. Gray hair is too much on your head. Thank you for the
Wow.
wisdom. you know how
Thank
they
you,
say,
Resi. I'm so
with
honored.
wisdom.
I'm so honored that
yeah.
you
Thank you
asked
so
me to
much.
speak.
Yeah. Thank you so much for this. And I really appreciate your time. I know that this is going to set so many people free, and this is going to help so many women, not even just women, men as well. Because like you said, how we were raised impacts so much how we become. If you're raised by an insecure mom, they are going to put that insecurity on you. Even if you are a boy, you're going to become insecure. And we know we have a lot of single mothers who are raising people back home and all over the world. So it's very important for women to be empowered, really, because what we do to children is too much. Like, we are out there, insecurity. Just look back and you're like, okay, I can see my mom or maybe my dad.
Yes.
So thank you once again. Yeah.
And all the best to the She Center.
Yeah. Thank you. Please help me spread the word by sharing our episodes with your friends, family, and followers. Let's amplify the voices of women, break barriers, challenge stereotypes, and create a network of support and empowerment. Together, we can bring about positive change and make this world a better place for all. This is She Center, the female podcast, where women's stories matter. I love you all. God bless.